Okay, that's what you should be seeing right now. Okay, thank you. So, the name of this webinar is Lost in Translation, Multicultural Issues. And basically, what I want to do is go over different things that have gone on. And I hope that we're now all seeing me properly. Let's have a look. Okay, so here I am. That's me, Robert Bull. For those of you who don't know, I'm an international executive, being all over the world in different companies. That's my home team. And as you may know, I'm a member of the Rotary Club here in Miami. Okay, so let's talk about Procter & Gamble a bit. When I started working at Procter & Gamble, that was in Venezuela. And back then, the #1 detergent in the United States was Tide. Now, how do you have a brand like Tide in Hispanic countries? What are you going to call them? Tide? I mean, nobody knows how to pronounce that. So I came up with a different name called Ace. Ace means to do, means ace in English, but in Spanish it makes a little bit more sense. So Ace, Tide became Ace overseas. Let's look at another guy, Mr. Clean. What is Mr. Clean called? Well, Mr. Clean in many countries is called Don Limpio. What? Don Limpio limpia grasa. Okay, that's how they used to say in the ad. Don Limpio cleans grease. Okay, and all these other things. Same basic positioning, had to adjust the name. Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to talk now, move from, stay in Venezuela, but move to a different company with Chiclets. Chiclets is a chewing gum that essentially was manufactured and produced nationwide in the United States way back when by a guy called Mr. Adams. And what happened, frankly, is that one of the dictators, generals from Mexico after the Mexican-American War, according to Mexican historians, he was bribed by the Americans to give up, to lose the war, that they were really winning it. Is that true or false? I don't know. I don't care. You know, it's too late now to even get into that discussion. But Santana, the general, came to the United States and he brought this box of chiclets, or no, he brought this chicle, and they tried to make um, basically rubber out of it, because rubber back then came from a rubber tree. It didn't work. So Mr. Adams decided to put some sweeteners into it, and bingo, he made this huge company. Okay. So I worked with them for a while in Venezuela, quite a while actually. And whoops, sorry, I went back. And so that's the kind of thing we had. It's called Chiclet. Had a little window. You can see the little candies in there. And we had the Super Cherry, and we had Hall's Mentholyptus. Amazing thing about Hall's in most of the world is a cough drop, right? You know, you got a cough, you take a Hall's, you go to the States, you're going to find it in drugstores. The thing is, in Latin America, if you have a cough drop, you can only sell it in a drugstore. Wow, that's a bit of a problem. You know, it limits your distribution, because here you can buy cough drops almost anywhere if you want, any convenience stores if you wish. So we positioned it in Latin America as a candy that was very refreshing. Yeah, very refreshing. The guy used to clear his throat in the commercial. So what did that end up doing? It ended up being the #1 cough drop. It destroyed all the other, destroyed, so it became #1. It beat all the other sort of candies and all these other lozenges and what have you. And it became very big. But the thing I want to talk to you about, I want to show you, is a commercial that I produced way back in Venezuela. It transmits well here. And basically, it's to show you how, even though I worked in a small country, we became the global standard way back when. Now, I'm going to apologize for the quality of this. This is the best I could find on YouTube. Uh, it's kind of old. Let's see that grow. Okay. Consagrando el sabor del nuevo chicle, para que disfrutes con tu sabor. Ven a compartir esta caja de chicle, el ritmo de hadas te sabe mejor. Para disfrutar el sabor de tu vida, lleva chicleta, el puro sabor. Chicle, mejor compañía, el ritmo de hadas te sabe mejor. Okay, so what am I trying to show with you there? Well, basically, my even though I was in a small, insignificant country, although back then Venezuela had a lot of money and everything else, uh, what essentially that became was the international standard of advertising for that brand. The theme, the logo, the concept of shaking the little box, using it like a maracas or a beat thing. And at the very end, when it's empty, boop, you can blow in the box. Isn't that cool? Okay, so that's what we kind of tried to do. And believe it or not, it worked out very well. It went all over the world. Now, Chiclets, it's funny, it's invented in the United States, but here it's Wrigley's is number one. Outside of this country, it's Chiclets. Okay. The other thing we did, I came up with this campaign. It's an ecological campaign. And those of you who may be watching me on Facebook, you notice I'm picking up a lot of trash up and down the streets here where I live. Now that we're in a lockdown, I go out for a walk. And what happened in Venezuela, I was driving behind some senator or something to see if it was a license plate number. And the guy in back was a senator, was reading a newspaper. When he's finished reading a newspaper, what did he do? Throw it out the window. I said, this is ridiculous. So I went back to the office and I came up with this concept. And the chew box of gums used to have a little sign that said "Open here." You know, everybody knows how to open a box of gum. So instead, I came up with this thing that said "Apúntale la cesta," which means aim at the basket. Okay, that's cool. How do you translate that into English? That is really tough. So I'm trying to do something like that because I'm trying to get this little township that I'm in here called Pinecrest to do something about all the rubbish. So I got to come up with something. Now, in the States, you don't say basket. You may say a waste paper basket, but that's in your house. Outside of your house, it's a trash can. That's obviously not a waste paper, a trash can. Well, it could be, I guess. So I'm just saying, how do you translate apunta a la cesta? That literally means aim at the basket and have it make sense. Well, if you guys have any ideas, send it to me later on. I'd really appreciate your input. Okay. But I thought one idea I had is dunk it in the basket, you know, like dunk from basketball. But not everybody's that keen on basketball. Not everybody knows what, you know, what that means. If it was in England, you could say toss it in the bin. But if you say that in the States, it doesn't mean anything because a bin is a trash can in England. Okay. So the other thing I had is toss trash here. Okay, fine. We're going to see what comes of it. I'm going to be pressuring the local government to try and do something about all the bloody trash up and down the streets. But I'm just taking a concept from way back when. Now, when you work in international environments, one thing we have to understand is there are infrastructural differences. I mean, here we got a camel dragging a cart. You go to Latin America, depends where you are. In Guatemala, you got these local people, I don't know if you call them, you know, Mayan descendants carrying stuff on their head, you know, just bags, balancing it on their heads, whatever. There's different kinds of things that go on. You have different tax issues, etc. So let's talk a little bit about tax. This is the corporate tax rates that existed prior to Trump's tax regime. If you notice, the third most expensive tax rate was in the United States. Corporate tax is 35%. Where are most other people? Well, Brazil's all the way up there, but we, you know, I think we got a couple of Brazilians here. We know what tax is like in Brazil. That's a different story altogether. Okay. Well, let's look at what it is over here. What is it in, you know, Singapore? 17%. Look at the top. Finland, 24. England, 23. That's amazing. Over here, Ireland, 12 and a half. Why do you think there's so many companies that move from the United States to Ireland? And here's the best one at the very bottom, Bermuda, zero corporate rates. Does anybody know where Bacardi's main office is? If you do, type it in. I'm waiting. Well, I kind of give you a very strong hint, right? Bacardi's headquarters are in Bermuda. Why? U.S. tax rates are 35%. Where's Bacardi made in Puerto Rico? It's the U.S. So when they ship outside the United States, they have to pay 35% corporate tax. Well, no, they don't. Because according to corporate law, intercompany sales have to have a markup of just 5%. So 5% of their markup is here. The rest is made out of Bermuda. So why do you think Trump decided to lower the taxes? And I'm not for Trump or against Trump. I'm just saying, when you look at the 12.5 over here, you look at other countries, you got to say, what on earth's going on? Hong Kong, 16.5, even Canada, 15% corporate rate, and we had a 35. No wonder companies were running from the United States, and some of them going to Canada. All right, so this is what Shanghai used to look like in 1990. The side closest to you on the screen is, I guess you'd call it the French side, whatever, it's a more developed side. Back then, it hasn't changed much since the Chinese uh, communist takeover, and the other side was, you know, say the older place. That's what it looked like in 2002. This was their plan for 2007, and now we're in 2020. So I got to tell you, it's much different. But if you go into side streets out of there, you're still going to see a lot of China. It's kind of backwards. One of the key things that's different about China is they value older people. Older people are equivalent to wisdom. In this country, and most of the West, older people, they need to go in old age home. They get pushed aside. You're forced to retire early, things like that. So there's a big difference on how you deal with your elders. Now, there's a lot of differences between the East and the West. If you look over there, it's the yin yang symbol, that circle. The white is the good, the black is bad. But you'll notice there's a little bit of bad in the good, a little bit of good in the bad. Yin yang, everything has a plus and a minuses, okay? So when you're looking at East versus West, we're talking about stability, change. United States, everything's very forward looking. In Europe, everything, I'd say, very much backward looking. You know, England, oh my God, everybody still talks about kings and queens and lords and bishops and all the rest of the stuff. I don't mean bishops from a religious perspective. Now let's look at some cultural lessons. Diet Coke in Japan is called light Coke. Why? Because supposedly dieting means you're fat, which means you don't take care of yourself. So that's not very well recorded. Now, the Japanese, they were very ruthless during World War II, immediately prior to World War II, and the red circle is very unpopular outside of Japan because they have long memories. They remember what happened in Nanjing in China, what happened in Korea, in Hong Kong, etc. Packaging is also very important, especially in Japan, where quality is key. So even packaging, you don't just look at the individual pack that you take, it's all the way through the packaging, meaning the exterior packaging. And this is funny, in the US and in England, dog is man's best friend. But in Africa, it's not seen as man's best friend. In the Middle East, in the Arab countries, a dog is considered a dirty animal. We call them kelb. Kelb is a word for dog. It's an insult to call somebody a dog. Well, I guess it'd be an insult to call somebody a dog here too. But you don't want dogs in your house. You don't want dogs near you. You won't be touching dogs. They're just there. So think about that when you're dealing with different people. In fact, thinking about using your left hand and your right hand. In your Middle East, left hand's no good. You know, so there's all these different issues that go on. There's an interesting proverb. In the US, they say, the early bird gets the worm. Cool. Means you get there first, you're going to get it. In the East, the first bird in the flock is the one that gets shot first. Okay, the first bird leading the flock gets shot. Very different. They always said, the nail that stands out will get hammered down. It's the importance of conformity, of understanding what is expected of me as part of the group. How am I supposed to behave? And then we have the issues of culture and tradition. This is in Kyoto. I think I took this picture. There's a golden pavilion. That building's almost 1,000 years old, and it's meticulously kept. Absolutely amazing. This is Shibuya, which I had, by the way, in the opening slide. Shibuya is, I used to live in Shibuya. I used to live just straight up the road. I don't know if you can see my cursor here. I used to live up there, okay? The place where I used to live was very quiet. And even with all these thousands and thousands of people, it's amazingly quiet. People, I don't know, they have rubber shoes, rubber soles, they walk quietly, they take care of what they do, okay? A lot of respect. 1 million people a day go through Shibuya Station. It's one of the biggest stations there is, and that's called Shibuya Crossing, which thousands and thousands of people cross. This is Harajuku. Can you see my wife, Stephanie, in there? I could never find her in a crowd. Stephanie had pitch black hair. She's about the same height as all Japanese. I used to tell her, you got to put a pink feather in your head or something. I could find you anywhere. So the desire for conformity, that even in the uniforms of the schools, the uniforms at work, it's just so much, that's the way it is. This is what my business card looks like when I was there. It's folded over in half, one side in English, one side in Japanese. This is my last name, Buru. Buru. They don't say bull because they can't pronounce it, something ending in an L. They have a hard time pronouncing an L. So I became Buru. I'm Buru-san, which means honorable bull. And on the inside of the card is a map. Why is there a map? Well, even the Japanese need a map to know how to go somewhere, because addresses in Japan are extremely confusing. They look at things upside down from what we do in the West. Here you'll say, oh, I live in, let's say my address, it's 6695 Southwest 133rd Street. I'm in Pinecrest, Florida, 33156. There you'd say, I'm in zip code 33156 in Pinecrest. I live on this street and that number. So it's totally the opposite way around. And the problem there is that streets do not have names. You won't see any name on any street. Well, actually you do. There's here, one has a dori, which means street. There's Yamate Dori, and here there's Old Yamate Dori. None of the other ones have names. They just don't have names. Streets don't have names. So I lived in the area of Shibuya. I lived in Shoto, which is this area. I lived on that street, but I was the 22nd building built on that street. The buildings are not sequential to when they were, where they are, they're sequential to when they were built. Very different mindset, okay? So when we talk about global marketing, we have to talk about how we're going to change our products, our advertising, our distribution, and even our price. What we used to sell different products when I was in R.J. Reynolds, we sold cigarettes. The price that we sold into the Middle East was not the same price that we sold into Russia or the same price that we sold into Japan. Totally different prices because the markets were totally different. But there's some other things that one needs to adapt. Here we have an example of Barbie doll. These are Japanese Barbie dolls. And they adapted their Barbie doll. If you notice, these girls, they all have these big, wide eyes. If you ever look at Japanese cartoons, anime, or I can't remember how to say it anymore, excuse me. They all have people with big, wide eyes. Why? Nobody in Japan has big, wide eyes, but that's what they use, okay? Now, look at the other extreme, which is Coca-Cola. Basically, it's a standard marketing mix, but there is slight adaptations in every single place. And here's an example, okay? Here we've got, okay, World Cup in San Francisco a long time ago. Here it says, Verano al rojo vivo, which means red hot summer, okay? And then here we got them in other languages, whatever. Didn't say Coca-Cola. I have no idea what it says. You know, it's really quite interesting. But Coca-Cola has challenges too. In the south of France, there's this company called, what sells Mecca Cola. Mecca from Mecca in the Middle East. And basically, one part of their sales goes to help the Palestinians or whatever. Okay? Does it look similar? They do similar kind of things? Sure they do. Now let's have a look at what happens in China. It's Wahaha Cola. Okay? Now, are they trying to rip them up? Sure are. Sure are. They're trying to find a way to copy them, find a way to get, you know, take a typical product and see what you can do. The other thing interesting I find about Coca-Cola is they have a concept, if you can't beat them, buy them. Why do I say that? Well, in some countries they went into, and try as they may, they could not beat the local brand. So what do? You buy them. And this is one that they had to buy. Inca Cola. Notice here it says, La bebida del Perú. It means Peru's beverage. Okay, Peru's soft drink. Is this a cola-looking drink? Do you see any cola color in there? It's a yellowish color, you know? But that's Inca Cola. They could not penetrate that market. Try as they may, didn't work. I mean, of course, they got some penetration, but they were never able to become a leader. So they bought the competition. That's really cool. Now, Some brands have evolved in the most strange ways that you just probably would never believe. Now, let me show you how Marlboro cigarettes began. Can you believe that? I should say not. My dad would never smoke anything but a Marlboro. Now, can you see that in the United States market? That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. Nobody would do that here in the United States. Okay? Excuse me. That is the United States. Nobody would do that in today's market. Okay? So what did they end up doing? They tried to find a masculine look. Okay, so they first used these two macho guys, hardworking man, uh, Madison Avenue executive. Okay, and then they tried a famous cowboy, the old cowboy. Which one won? We all know. Cowboy won. The Marlboro Man. That became the Marlboro Man. Not the other two on the outside, the one who stood up and represented American heritage, the West. Okay, and then we had the Marlboro Man. Come to Marlboro country. Venga al mundo Marlboro. That's what they say in Spanish. So that's really, the adaptations, how you go from a little boy to something else. Well, somebody had to stand up to Marlboro, and it was Camel. Camel tried fighting Marlboro. There we got Camel as it originally was. Ultimately, it says camels are here. What it was is that Mr. Reynolds saw, I think it was Barnum and Bailey or Barnum Circus came into town, was fascinated with the look of a camel. So he put the camel on the logo, and then he came up with that famous slang in English, I'd walk a mile for a camel. Well, that works really well in English, but they found out only men were smoking it, so then they tried this women's campaign. That didn't work too well. But during the war, meaning World War II, they figured out if I can get these cigarettes to all the soldiers and give it to them at a very good price, they're all going to smoke these camels. And when they come home, they're going to smoke camels as well. So that's what they did. And so it became very, very popular. It became #1 in the United States. But over time, it slipped. And then they decided to go back to this, I'd walk a mile for a camel. Okay. Did that work? Well, not really that much. Here we have, I'd walk a mile for a camel. But funnily enough, even though Camel in the United States was seen as an old fogey cigarettes, a guy my grandfather used to smoke, whatever, overseas it wasn't. And overseas, they had this kind of campaign that they also tried in the United States. They had this guy, we used to call him, his name was Bob Beck. And he was out in the jungles, a guy, rough, tough guy. But these pictures don't relate to American citizens. This is not aspirational. There's nothing to them, absolutely nothing. In other countries, like in Germany, the Germans love this stuff. Why? Well, because it's totally the opposite of what they want, and the Germans are a little bit more adventurous, so the French and everybody else. But speaking of the French, they came up in a crazy campaign, and they used this sort of camel figure as something to tease during the French argument period, during the French, I don't say revolution, but in the period when people were just becoming extremely reverent to everything. And Americans thought it'd be a really good idea. So they took that same old French campaign, and here somebody came up with a brilliant idea. Says, "Want to see a show?" It sounds to me like it's a pervert saying, "Want to see something?" Anyway, the U.S. government said this was a campaign to address children. No, never was a campaign to address children. It was something that was taken from the French company that worked over there among young adults who were rioting and doing all kinds of crazy things. Okay, and what did they end up doing overseas? They did something else. Camel Trophy. What did they do in Camel Trophy? Wow. Tough guys out there fighting, going through different places. These are pictures from Ushuaia. Okay, cool. But there's other things you need to do. Here we are. This is when I was in Russia. That's Sochi in the south of Russia. And that's Miami Beach. And I can't remember what it says in Russians. But basically what we're trying to do is it's a U.S. brand appeal, with a U.S. appeal. Basically, you're trying to say, we're like the United States. Isn't that cool? Because the United States is aspirational. Don't listen to what people say about what people think about the United States. It still is a very aspirational country. But then locally, I worked on this project. And this was in Russia. We launched a brand called Pietre Pievre, which means Peter the First. And it was basically a nationalistic positioning. Peter the First was the czar that opened up Russia to Europe. brought all these Europeans in. He built all these massive things there. He built St. Petersburg, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And this brand became one of the most successful brands. It was national. We're doing a heritage appeal. Remember Russia, Mother Russia, what have you. And basically said it's international quality. In other words, it was just like a Western cigarette, but it's designed by Russians, made by Russians, for Russians. It became the #1 brand in Russia by far. Okay, and so that was a brand that we worked on. Once I had that success in Russia, I said, well, I'm going to try this somewhere else, right? And there we are in Ukraine. This says Arsenal. Arsenal was basically a place where they stored all their weapons to fight against the Russians, because Ukrainians are not Russians. I mean, today you have this war going on in Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine versus Western Ukraine. What many people don't know or realize, the people in Eastern Ukraine are really Russians. It's just somebody else drew a map during the Soviet period, and they just moved the borders of Ukraine, but it made no difference because it was all one country, right? All Soviet Union. But Ukrainians are different than Russians, just like Portuguese are different from Spanish. Okay, it's a little bit different. All right. This became also the #1 brand there. Then I tried something in Kazakhstan, but a low-end brand. It's called Bars. And basically, it's a snow leopard. They value their nature, and that's an animal that's in risk of becoming extinct. So it became something that people had to look at. But regardless of what I did, I had to always remember that no matter what, we tried to put a happy face onto a very deadly habit. So let's move on to other things. I'm going to go on now to talk about a local activity, because not everybody can deal with Coca-Cola and big brands, okay? This is a company that I worked with, and they were founded in 1922, and they've been losing their clients over many years and losing money over the last 5 years. They were essentially stuck in a time warp, and they were in a critical situation. There I got the owner saying, oh, help me. Oh, my God, what am I going to do? So I went to his place, and this is what it looked like. You can even see here, the signs are broken, it's dark, kind of dated looking. And what did I do? Here's a case analysis, what I did. Okay, #1 thing I did was a SWOT, and I prepared a SWOT analysis and competitive analysis. Now, those of you who took my beginning classes, SWOT is when you look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. We had to find out what was strong about this company, because it was really big in the 50s and the 60s. People used to talk about it. So, hey, what is it? What happened? So we found out people remember that. Oh, yeah, I used to go to my grandmother. I used to go to my mother. Yeah, used to. Everything was used to. Okay. Competitive. So I asked the owner, I said, okay, let's go just visit some competitors. He said, I can't do that. Well, why not? He said, well, it's not ethical to walk and speak to my competition. I said, excuse me, you work in the same industry, grab him by the hand, let's go. So we went in and I decided to look at what was around. There were a lot of people who used to sell a lot of cheap stuff. And by the way, this company was basically famous for selling fabrics to make clothes, okay? So we had to define it, how are we going to segment the market? Well, a lot of the stores around there were low end, meaning they used to sell stuff for $1 a yard, $2 a yard. I mean, if you're selling stuff for $1 a yard, you got to sell many thousands of money. Nothing wrong with that. But I had to define the segment we're going to compete in. I had to see what was out there. There were some other things as well. And I needed to develop a point of difference. And for those of you who took my earlier classes, you'll know what this is, or my earlier webinars. Point of difference means what makes me unique. Because if I'm not unique, I'm just me too. Here I am. I'm there too. Well, me too doesn't work. It's not significant. Point of difference, what makes you unique? And then I had to establish a vision and a mission. What did we want to achieve long term? And why do we even exist today? What's the reason for that? And train the employees and spread that vision and mission. Make sure that they understand that they're part of that, that they want to be involved in achieving that vision, that mission. And then we had to go out and identify prospective clients. Who do we want to talk to? Do we want to speak to everybody? I don't think so. We want to speak to a target. If we can identify who we want to speak to, we can then target them. And then once we have an action plan to acquire customers, we got to figure out how to retain them. How do we retain them? One of the key things, if anybody walked into the store, we wanted their name, their phone number, their email, something, so that we can find out who they are and we can get. So let me show you moving forward, this is the change. Remember what it was like. This is on a Sunday, okay? Does that shout? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to shout, hello, this is it, okay? And then we came up with image promotions. This is in 2002. It's called there the French Festival, Festival de Francia. Got this really nice French stuff. We went to all the different French companies there. Like people imported French wine. Hey, can you give me a couple bottles of wine or buy some wine cheap? We're going to promote your name. We went to places that sell crepe, crepe, like they sell there. Some food. The Alliance Française for French lessons, some perfumes, whatever. We had girls walking up and down the street. Hey, they got this good promotion. Just go in the store, fill out your name, and you're going to be in this lottery, okay? And this, the jackpot, pull the prize. And got thousands of people walking in. It really worked very well. This is the advertising. El Cairo, lo mejor en telas, which in English means the best in fabrics. And at the bottom, you see the word exclusivity, quality, service. And here's a list of different fabrics that they had and we got them to get, okay? I never knew anything about any fabrics. Here's one, peau de soie. They used to spell that in Spanish, P-O-D-U-S-U-A, peau de soie. Nobody knew what it meant. Peau de soie means skin of silk. That's what it means literally in French. But anyway, these are all these different French things. Cool, we got it going. It seemed to work. So let me tell you how it seemed to work. Whoops, sorry. Sales first year were up 235% from the prior year. Now, granted, small base, okay, but more than basically triple the sales from what they were because it was plus 200%. The following year, plus 74, plus 61, plus 35, and I have no idea what happened afterwards because I had nothing to do with it anymore. There is an issue. There's some problems you just can't solve. Bums in the street, falling, drunk or whatever, shoeless Joe, right outside these gorgeous display windows. What can you do? Well, the only thing they could do is eventually, once they pick this business up, is open up another branch, if you wish, in a better neighborhood. And they kept on going. Now let's talk about a different company. And this is what I call a Guatemalan success story, and how a local company was able to defeat a multinational enterprise, using United Nations words. Okay, now, how can a local company beat a huge multinational? Well, this is a local company, okay, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, Mr. Colonel Sanders, he's long gone. His company is being sold time and time again by different companies. I don't even know who owns it right now, okay? But how can a local company stand up to this? Well, meet the champion. This is the Guatemalan champion. Hey, there he goes. Okay, cool. And this champion, is known as Pollo Campero. That's the name of it. Campero is the name. Campo, it means field. Campero means the chicken from the field. I guess that's the best you can translate it. It has unique products and knows what else. Very good taste. It's really quite good. So this is what they claim. They say Campero, okay? And basically, when you look at what they say within their own website, they say Pollo Campero is a chain of pollo restaurants with fast, cordial service at your table. Yeah, they do have takeout, but at your table. Their vision is to build Campero into an international chain of chicken restaurants to become the leader, sorry I misspelled that, it's in Spanish, in Latin America and the world. I think the world is a bit of a stretch with the name Campero. It's like Pollo Tropical here in Miami. I mean, Pollo Tropical works really well in Miami, but you take Pollo Tropical up to, I don't know, Pocatello, Idaho, nobody will be able to figure out what polo is, right? So anyway. So I think Latin America, they can do well. What is their mission? To provide the best chicken dining experience in a fast food restaurant while achieving our success and profitability of our company stakeholders and franchise owners. Okay, that's really cool. They just want to have the best dining experience, not takeout. So in their vision, marketing and sales, they say they work as a team, which they should. They create a connection between the brand values and consumers through advertising, promotion, and the equity of the brand. That chicken is just so important for them, that logo, that whole feeling that you get from seeing it. And their strategy to establish the best price values. Not that we're cheapest. It's the best price for what you're getting, price value. And they think that's going to ensure their growth and profitability. And all of their activities, whatever it is based on the impact and the return on investment. They look at sales, transaction, profitability. Every single action they do, is that chicken giving them what they want, okay? And that's what they're seeking. So what is their differentiation? Well, that's important, that unique selling point. What makes me different? See, it says warm, friendly, happy, service, Latin style. For people who prefer the Latin style family way of dining, the hint to this is in the photograph. If you look at this picture over here, you're going to see a fork. And this is not a plastic fork. This is a metal fork. The way it works there, you go to the counter, place your order, you give it a number, you go sit down, and then somebody will bring the food to your table on a real dish, not on a plastic dish, on a real dish with a knife and a fork and a napkin. They're not used to eating foods there, meaning the upper class people or Latin people in general. They don't eat with their hands. In fact, I remember when I first came to the United States many, many years ago when my kids were small, and I took my son to Burger King, and he'd never been in the United States. It was his first time. He was 4 or 5. I don't remember how old he was. And we sat him down and we brought the hamburger to him with the French fries. And he said, "Where's the knife and fork?" He had never eaten like that with his hands. I mean, it's just different. So their point of difference is exactly Latin style family way of dining, eating. You get somebody serving at your table. When you're finished, your knife, your fork, your plate is picked up. A little bit different than going to Kentucky Chicken. Plus, the food is fantastic, and the sauces are really good too. Then they have here, you see, they launched in the United States. It says "Exitazo en USA," which means a big success in the United States. Okay, great. This is in California, where there are a tremendous amount of Guatemalans, and they have Guatemalans here too, down in Homestead and elsewhere. In Miami, they have launched two that I know of. One of them was on US 1 by 152nd, somewhere in that area. I don't remember exactly. That franchise didn't work too well. There's another one down on A Street. But what they're missing there is that heritage value. You see, the Guatemalans over there in LA, they know Campero from back home. That's why you have that big line coming up, okay? Do you only want to deal with Guatemalans in the United States? No. But does it work here? Sure. Would it work outside of a Hispanic place? No. Has it worked in other Latin countries? Yes. Okay, because they have gone to Salvador, Nicaragua, and other countries as well. So the reason I'm talking about these two businesses is because one's a retail store, the other one's a restaurant business. So whatever we've done so far from the marketing, strategic planning, business management, sales, and later on we're going to get into accounting and finance, it works no matter how big or how small you are, okay? So I want to thank you for attending this webinar. It's been a real pleasure. I had a lot of fun showing it to you. If you have any questions, go right ahead. Send me an email. That's my email address. It's rbull.miamirotary@gmail.com. You can also go on my Facebook page or on my YouTube page as well. So I want to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I want to see I got my Thailand shirt. I mean, I go all over the world. I have a great time. Bye-bye. See you next time. Thank you for being there. I'm going to take this camera off because I think it got rid of the page there. So anyway, so my Facebook, it's facebook.com/FESPA with a small f, financial big F. Why is it that way? Don't ask me. I had a hard time getting on to Facebook with my business address. My YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. This video will be pasted to YouTube, and I'll send it out in a while. It's FESPA, F-E-S-P-A. If you look at FESPA, you'll have a hard time finding it because there's plenty of others. And I have a short URL. You just put in short url.at/b, big D, big G, big M, big T, meaning capital D, G, M, T. And you'll go straight to my YouTube. You can click on my other pages. So thank you ever so much. I'm going to say goodbye one more time. I really appreciate everybody who joined on. I know some of the people here. Let me see, Gustavo Beck. I remember him. Oh, he was even in Guatemala, so he knows what I talked about. But I know him from Brazil and Luana. And oh, so many other. Oh, Rui Sais. Oi, Rui, tudo bem? The Brazilian friend of mine. That's really great to see him. Okay, you guys. So we're done. I'll send you all an email with a video of this thing. Okay. I appreciate this. Now we got to exit the webinar. Thank you very much. It's been a real great pleasure having you on this thing. Bye bye. Thank you. Tchau. Até logo. Um abraço, tá? Tchau, bom. Bom, bom. Tchau, tchau. Tchau.